Oh, that's real good.
Go for it, Roxanne.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome to our very first You Down with IDP show.
Who came up with that name? Was that you?
Yeah.
Oh, good name.
I was just throwing ideas out there.
I reached out to Naughty by Nature to try to see if there's nothing. Of course, nothing. But you miss
nothing yet.
Nothing yet. You never know. What's the worst they could say is no, you can't use our song as the intro. And if they want us to buy it, if it's $3 or whatever they charge, I'm sure I can cover that.
I guess the worst thing is that they just don't acknowledge your existence at all. But yes, let's go with your option.
Shoot or shoot. Okay.
That's right.
Damn right.
That's right.
Shoot. Oh, all right, Roxanne. Before we get off track on this whole thing, please.
Already.
Yep.
Take it away.
I am your host, Roxanne. With me is No Punt Intended co-host Joe Zollo. Hello.
Hi.
His love for IDP is what brought this show to life. And to bring it home, Club Fantasy is partnering with one of the most respected names in the realm of IDP, Fantasy and Frames. So yay for that.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
This guy. I got awkward pointing.
No.
Over there. No, that way.
No, behind you. Yeah. Nope. There we go. This guy right here.
The only way to know how to point is down on this stream.
Yeah.
Up. Left and right is really messed up.
I know.
Yep. Left and right's messed up.
Oh, sure.
Yep.
Joining Joe and myself are FIF founder Jorge Edwards.
How y'all doing?
IDP rankers out there, and Mr. Nate Marcum.
How you guys doing? Nice to see y'all.
This is exciting.
Well, seriously, it's great to have another IDP show in general, just because as small of a niche as it is, I feel like it's growing everywhere,
right?
Which is fantastic, and to have such a great collection of people here on the show is just fantastic. I think Roxanne, I met you through Gary Davenport last year, who's a huge IDP, the godfather of IDP. So just the connections that everybody has within the IDP community is just it's just great to be a part of the show and to be here.
It is. And I got to say, Gary's one of the smartest minds I've ever met when it comes to IDP.
Oh, hands down.
He knows everything.
Yeah, he does. It's far from intimidating to be around someone like that, which is shocking because typically a person who's that high up in terms of just prestige, clout, knowledge usually is a little intimidating to talk to, but he makes you feel like you're smarter than him, which is his self-deprecation, which I tell him not to do all the time. He does it anyway, but it is. And Joe, I'm humbled to be around you, buddy. You're pretty damn smart yourself, my friend.
Wow,
Jorge, you're okay.
I accept that.
Jorge.
I accept that.
Dang, that feels good. How my dad's watching.
Gary came to me a couple years ago and asked me if I wanted to write for IDP. And at that point, I didn't study defensive players. I didn't do anything. And he taught me everything I know about cornerbacks. So I have to give him credit for that. I saw he just left Gridiron Ratings, though. I hope he's doing well in his other ventures.
Oh, Gary Van Dyke. Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. You mentioned him. When I first started doing IDP, I would put out, my rankings back then, like I knew what I was doing compared to now. And he saw that. He messaged me. He's like, hey, I like what you're doing here. Let me introduce you to people there. And that's how I got sucked into the IDP community. And Gary Van Dyke, he was very influential in getting me started in IDP. So props to Gary.
Me too, very much. All right. Tonight, what are we covering, you guys? All have your own subjects we want to talk about. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. So overall, we'll just talk about everything IDP. Again, it's probably daunting for most people, very niche at this point. So we're essentially helping guide the people that love IDP like every single one of us does here. And maybe on the off chance, convincing someone who doesn't know IDP to switch to IDP, or at least consider the switch. And maybe if you're the league commissioner, like Josh Hudson is, to maybe switch the league to an individual defensive player league and not have me stream defenses every single week. That would be amazing. That's what we're going with, Roxanne.
That's what I like.
Yeah.
All right. Who wants to start then?
Let's go down the list, and we'll go in the bottom right. Let's go Jorge.
All
Quick
right.
hit. So that we have the 2 to 3 players. And I'll speak for myself that I just went through and found the 2 to 3 players that I thought weren't really talked about as much in the offseason. I don't know what both of you guys did, but Jorge, I'll let you kind of start with the 2 guys you have.
Sure. So, as it goes, the fall is kind of when redraft season takes over, and then you get, the end of January, and then dynasty season starts to ramp up more and more. And so we started expanding our dynasty content, and I started to research more IDP players, and a couple of names came to mind. One, Rashawn Gary, edge defender. When I say edge defender, I mean like somebody who qualifies as like a linebacker or a defensive lineman in your fantasy football leagues, whatever platform you're using. I think ESPN, they still have the edge designation. A platform like Sleeper, they have players who are like dual eligible. So that's where that edge DLLB thing comes from. You look at last year, I mean, this is a guy who the past 2 seasons leading up into last year was kind of like a letdown. He was drafted in Michigan. For those who remember in the NFL draft, when he was drafted, he was bawling. I mean, he was crying, just so happy to get drafted. Great moment, and he just didn't really live up to like the hype of a first round pick until last year. Last year he went off. He was number 3 overall in quarterback hits, number 3 overall in pressures. Out of all the defensive players in the NFL, he had 9.5 sacks. That was 18th most. And so when we're talking about fantasy players, we're talking about IDP players, something that we have to, address the elephant in the room here is, unlike on offense, there's no unified IDP scoring setting out there. So you're kind of, which I look, there are some people who like the creative freedom. There are other people like me who are like, you know what? I like to have a frame of reference to build upon or to change, when I'm, going and doing my things, just like on offense. So here at Fantasy and Frames, we created our own IDP scoring rubric, which basically rewards, a lot of tackles. It rewards, the big plays like sacks and interceptions. And it rewards other metrics that, places like Fantasy Pros or other places, they don't really take into consideration, like pressures, the concept of pressures. Like, it's one thing for defensive lineman or an edge rusher to get to the quarterback and make a sack. That's great. But what, how do we predict sacks? Well, sacks are kind of like hard to predict. What you can say, though, is a defensive lineman or an edge rusher who's getting to the quarterback, who's getting that pressure, has the likelihood of getting those sacks, getting those quarterback hits. So we created a scoring setting where you get points for quarterback hits and you get points for, obviously, for sacks, but we increase the value of these plays incrementally. And so when I'm looking at players that, fit this, scoring rubric, Rashawn Gary just at the top of the list when it comes to up and coming players, especially from a dynasty perspective. Another player we looked into this offseason was safety Brandon Jones. And so Nate and I, we have a affinity for Brandon Jones, and I think, and he'll get into a little bit later. One of the things I was really impressed with Brandon Jones was the situation that he is currently in. Last year, he started taking over starting safety duties, I want to say like 4 games into the season. And all of a sudden, he turned in a magnificent performance at the safety position, rushing the quarterback. Now, when I think about a strong safety, I think of like a de facto linebacker who's there racking up tackles, getting to the line of scrimmage, making plays. This guy, his defensive coordinator at the time, Josh Boyer, who was retained by Mike McDaniel going into this year, basically his philosophy was like, hey, you're a safety, go get the quarterback. you're going to be better than some of our own edge rushers. Go get the quarterback. Mm-hmm. And he was top 5 amongst all defensive backs in quarterback hits, quarterback hurries. He had the most sacks out of any defensive back in the NFL last year. And again, when we're talking about scoring settings that emphasize pressure, especially for edge defenders or just players in general, he's another one of those players who really is at the top of the list of players you should be paying attention to going forward, especially from a dynasty perspective.
Yeah, and to elaborate a little bit on that further too, is it makes sense in that by definition, a pressure is really a statistic that when you total sacks, knockdowns, and hurries into one metric, it makes it an easier digestible form of content to break down. It's like it kind of formulates and funnels some information that could be lost in translation into one specific area. And the one thing with that, and this will lead right into one of the guys that I think is overlooked in some other scoring formats, and that, as Jorge's talked about, the fantasy and frame scoring is kind of both a combination of big play, tackle heavy. It's a correlation to offense. Whereas like the big play scoring, which a lot of people like that, because again, Joe, you mentioned earlier, one of the key things. Do you like points? Yes, people like points. So big play scoring sometimes identifies and gives bonus points more so than just the tackle only, which I'm not a for or against anyone of scoring. I could care less. I say that not like I'm against Jorge, like I want it unified, but if you give me a format that is a tackle's worth 1 billion points and a sack is -2, well, then guess what? I'm going to figure out who benefits me by understanding my scoring. And that's one thing that everybody should do. And so one of the players that realistically in this big play scoring, so assume you're looking for a player who traditionally at, say, linebacker, defensive line, that gets blurred. There's a gray area there because certain defensive line edge rushers that have linebacker eligibility in some scoring formats are worthless. They can be defensive line top 5 or 6, but when you look at the overall scoring, comparatively speaking to linebackers, they finished 60th. So what we don't want to do from an IDP standpoint is eliminate these great players that are pass rushers that might not have big tackle upside, but they do have sack upside. And so we want to accentuate them. And so big play scoring makes a person like Chandler Jones much more effective in both defensive line and linebacker. Let's look at the last 3 years, Chandler Jones. Mind you, he's switching now to the Las Vegas Raiders opposite Max Crosby. Ideal situation in most likely a pass-heavy scheme, division, if you look at the 4 teams there. So look at the past 3 years. He ranks 8th overall in sacks in that time. He's 4th in fumble recoveries in that time. He's 2nd in forced fumbles. He's 94th in total tackles. That's going to lower that proverbial ceiling that Chandler Jones is going to have. And so in big play scoring, those quote unquote big plays help offset some of that lack of tackle volume. And you'll see that in some of these formats where Chandler Jones, again, with like the rankings, like we've all talked about, I got to do my Fantasy Pros rankings. And that goes into my philosophy every time is who's going to have a chance to, if I'm not going to get a sack out of this defensive edge, like Chandler Jones, et cetera, or Rashawn Gary, and they're not going to give me a ton of tackles, I have to drop them pretty far down. And so it becomes matchup based. And, and that kind of alludes to the second person who I got to tell you, I don't know much about. This is a pure, just wishing
Dart
well.
throw.
Dart throw is the right word. That's much better than a wishing well. But both.
Hold on. Time out. Because I obviously stepped over your words.
No, you were.
What
me?
What 1970s reference am I missing from Wishing Well?
Well, I don't know. Joe,
playing the age card already, huh, Joe? Okay.
I'm 43 years old, and so we have I have a dartboard in my house. You think that would come natural? I can see it from my chair right there. You think that I'd be like, oh, dart throw. I don't have a fucking wishing well outside.
I'm impressed that you can see it at 43 years old.
LASIK.
I just imagine in my head that Nate was like, "Oh, what can I pull? Wishing well, wishing well." He had like the Sound of Music in his head for some reason. And he pulled Wishing Well.
Got my cane and I'm walking. And the good news is maybe.
Yeah, who are you pulling out of the Wishing Well?
The Wishing Well is going to be a gentleman who wouldn't fit in a Wishing Well, most likely. Rashad Weaver. I think we're going to need to remember the name, maybe for a 1 year only, but this is one of those situations. I like what I've seen so far in preseason. I know. But when Harold Landry with the Titans went down for the season. The next person, next man up, swimming around the wishing well, just waiting to get that coin, probably a Buffalo nickel or whatever old-timey coins there were back in the day. Hit them. Yeah, thank you. I know I got my coin collection.
Coins. I'm impressed. That's fantastic.
Yeah. Did you guys ever have that? Someone in your family used to have that penny collection. They had that little the booklet, and I know I was listening to someone, I think Theo Vaughn, said he stole it from his uncle or somebody like that. And he's like, and he has no clue how many were worth anything. I have no clue how much Rashad Weaver is going to be worth this year. But what I can tell you is I like the fact that when you look at pressures, he led the NFL in preseason with 10. Sacks, he had 1 as a result of the 10 pressures. The 2 hits obviously led. The 7 hurries, which 7, 2, and 1 adds to 10. But the 7 hurries is what gives me optimism. I like that upside. But just as a little added bonus, he had 10 total tackles in that same time. So I think that here's a person who, in a Mike Vrabel-led defense, might be that sneaky kind of person to pay attention to. We're talking way on the other end of the spectrum. We're talking about Chandler Jones, Rashawn Gary, whoever Joe's going to talk about. And I mentioned Rashad Weaver, but we have to look at some of these situations, like Kerry Hyder Jr., and we could probably go on and on of people that fill in that you might just – I'm hoping that you're going to hear the name here for the first time, second time, 10th time, and maybe it will stick if he comes out this first week and gets a sack or 2.
Well, you have a track record on club fantasy shows predetermining or predestining a player who will eventually make big waves. Jordan Davis, I think on one of your mock drafts you did for club fantasy, he was like, this is a mammoth human being. He should go to the Eagles. And then he went to the Eagles on draft night. That's so maybe this is the guy. Maybe this is Rashad Weaver's, this is the thing. This is what's going to set him off.
My clairvoyance is coming through.
Clairvoyance. There's the word I'm going for. Clairvoyance.
Are you suggesting people, if they do have him, put them in their lineup this week?
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Yes. You have to be the D. Exactly. Take out Rashawn Gary. No, I'll tell you what, though, is in a league like the IDP Brouhaha, where you have to start a defensive end only one time and you can only start him once, this could be a week where you might just get ahead of the curve. He might be a flash in the pan and be nothing in realistic scenarios, but the depth chart there is nothing. So there's a good chance.
So you're right on the depth chart. The issue is he's behind Bud Dupree on the depth chart, who, outside of Jeffrey Simmons, is by far the best pass rusher on the team.
Correct.
So unless they slide him opposite, and Danico Autry is listed as an outside linebacker. I don't get that.
And that's what I don't. That's where I think he fits in personally. I don't.
Yeah.
That might.
Yeah. That's okay. That's yeah. All right. Now my mind changed. I didn't see Danico Autry is listed as an outside linebacker. Isn't he like 350 pounds? That dude should not be playing outside linebacker.
A nimble 350 pounds.
Yes,
dude, I don't care how. 350 is 350. You're not nimble enough to play outside linebacker. Okay.
You know what? These linemen are no joke when it comes to athleticism. You never know. You never know.
They're all more athletic than I'll ever be in my lifetime. Not athletic enough to play outside linebacker in the NFL. That's all I'm getting. Athletic enough to play defensive tackle, maybe nose tackle, maybe kick Tier Tart out of his nose tackle position. I would have given all of you $1,000 individually if you could tell me where Tier Tart even goes to school.
Now?
Where do you go to school?
Oh, I have no clue. Tier Tart went to school.
Florida International.
That's not real.
Jorge, you weren't guessing. You weren't guessing.
I was going to say Temple, and I was just really hoping that was going to be the case. And it's just so random and obscure of a football school, but nope, not so much.
Even more obscure.
Mm-hmm.
FIU.
FIU. Danico Autry is also 32 years old. If there's ever going to be a case, he's again. I don't know.
That's a good point.
Yeah. All right, so you went big play. Jorge went fantasy frame scoring. I was tasked with tackle heavy because for the first 6 years I played IDP, it was tackles are 2 points, sacks are 3 points. So you're not even sacks are literally like throw in wins.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. You don't even worry about that. Like again, TJ Watt, who doesn't have defensive end eligibility in that league, is worthless. He's not even inside. He's barely inside the top 50 as a linebacker. He's literally worthless in that league. He's currently a free agent. That's how worthless TJ
Wow.
Watt is
Yeah.
in this 100%, completely worthless. So my two guys,
Crazy.
yeah, that is nuts. Where in every other league, he is the number one defensive end, and like if he's not one linebacker, he's probably two. So he's normally the first defensive player off the board. My tackle heavy, I'll start with Kazir White, comes over from the Chargers. There's no real competition, in my opinion, for him when it comes to at least raking in a bunch of tackles. I know Philly's defense has gotten much better, but I feel like they've gotten much better in the secondary of all places compared to anywhere else. Jordan Davis, obviously fantastic. Nakobe Dean is going to be good too. But Kazir White, weak side, can blitz, can do all this stuff. He was top 10 in a tackle heavy league that I played in last year in terms of the tackles. He now doesn't have to fight with Kenneth Murray. He's in a division where he's playing against Ezekiel Elliott, a team in the, who knows what the Commanders are going to do. Jorge, if you can, do a crystal ball and tell me what the hell's happening down in our nation's capital for their football team, that would be amazing. And the Giants suck. So he basically has easy teams. This week he goes up against the Lions, a team that's probably going to be heavy with DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams, and a team where, their quarterback can't throw more than 10 yards down the field or it's an interception. So that's really going to bode well for him. Not a great offensive line if they ever send him on a rush. We don't know how he's going to be used in Philly. All I know is that the former that was there, and it was Alex Singleton, who was there last year. You probably never heard of his name, but if you're an Eagles fan, you know who he is, because outside of Darius Slay, he was probably the most effective player on your defense because he's always around the ball. Those linebackers in this situation always have the opportunity to be around the football. And Kazir White is by far the best guy in that linebacking core in that second level to be around the football, in my opinion. Now, staying in the division is my second guy, which I am shocked that I have him on here. I still don't understand why the Giants got rid of Blake Martinez. It has to be injury related. I didn't look too far into it. But Tay Crowder now fills the role of the former tackle leader in the NFL, Blake Martinez. 3 years ago, he led the NFL in tackles. That was with the Packers. But the first year he came over to the Giants, when Giants fans were bitching that, oh my God, why did we sign Blake Martinez to this contract? Well, it's because he was second in the league in tackles the first year you got him. Mm-hmm. He's a tackle machine. Everyone's like, oh, he misses so many tackles. No, he doesn't. He does not. So Tay Crowder, primarily, I thought was playing more outside than anything, but he's now the guy that's going to take over for Blake Martinez. And last game of the season last year, played every single defensive snap for them, raked in a bunch of tackles. He can blitz the quarterback as well. I think he's going to be well-rounded enough and he has enough pieces around him where his name is by no means going to garner any form of attention or game plan around him. They're game planning for Leonard Williams. They're game planning for Dexter Lawrence. Those are the guys they're game planning for. They are not game planning for Tay Crowder. So those two guys I just mentioned, no one's game planning for them. Nobody, not a single team, until they make teams start game planning for them. And honestly, this year, I don't think that's happening. I think Tay Crowder's going to have a fantastic year. In all honesty, he might even be available in a lot of your leagues in like, to be realistic. Mm-hmm. And he's playing 35 carry Derrick Henry this week in the rain. Yeah. That's, I mean, I would mark him down for 10 solo tackles, not even counting assists or anything like that throughout the entire game. So I like Tay Crowder a lot. I'm not going out and getting him. I have Devin White, and I got Devin White as my backup, so that just shows you how I'm chilling in that league. But yeah, I got him as my backup. So I love Tay Crowder though, especially if you got to start multiple linebackers, and at some point you're gonna need to start a starting middle linebacker. He's your guy. I love Tay Crowder.
It's funny you bring up the love for Tay Crowder, and I think in a lot of IDP circles there's a lot of like negativity regarding him. But you bring up a very good point. He had an 11.5% tackle rate. He only had a 8.7 missed tackle rate. His pressure rate was 18.5%. I mean, these are pretty decent numbers. I just think, now that you mention it, and I'm, trying to figure out why is it that people are, negatively responding to Tate Crowder, because he's not Blake Martinez.
Yeah.
And I think there may be some kind of like name value, what have you done for me lately type of situation going on here. To be honest with you, I had no idea his efficiency numbers were actually as high as they are. I'm actually surprised. But I think it's, again, the recency bias of, seeing Blake Martinez for so many years be so elite and Tate Crowder just not being Blake Martinez. But you're right, especially for this week against Derrick Henry. I mean, he will be trying to tackle Derrick Henry as best as possible. How effective that'll be at actually stopping Derrick Henry is a different story, but I could see that. Nate, what are your thoughts on Kazir White?
I loved Kazir White a lot more when he had defensive back eligibility, of course. I think that was kind of the cheat code that we all wanted. The one thing that I like about White is the fact that the biggest concern with Nakobe Dean when he came in is that it wasn't a concern, it was a benefit to him, is that he was able to play both coverage as well as run stopping. And yet, if there's an area that Kazir White does well, it's in coverage, as in addition to being able to go sideline to sideline. And so I don't see a situation like my concern with White was always Nakobe Dean. Well, when they start playing Nakobe Dean, who's going to lose snaps? Is it going to be TJ Edwards? Is it going to be Kazir White? Well, of course it's going to be White, right? Because that would seem to be the easy answer. And I don't know if that's the truth or not. And so I think for the draft capital that it costs to get White was next to nothing. He might still be available in some leagues just because people overlook that name, a la Tate Crowder. And Tate Crowder, there's it's very similar situation. Micah McFadden is waiting there. And the one thing with Wink Martindale's defense is that he wants pressure, Yet I think that whenever I look back and research that's so blown out of proportion. Look at any of his middle linebackers. And you know what you'll find? You'll find zero productivity when it comes to sacks or pressures. He didn't deploy them in that. That's what I think this narrative that we all have in our head is Wink Martindale's going to blitz everybody. It's going to be Micah McFadden's going to come in and he's going to have 17 pressures and he's going to take over the world. No, that's not what he does. It's just that's this common groupthink that I think we all have. And so I think there's a chance that Tate Crowder sticks around. I say unfortunately because that's what my brain says to say. Tate Crowder sucks. I don't know why that is because it's not going to watch the games. I haven't broken down anything.
Just from watching him, and again, it's mostly like last year and over the last couple seasons. Watching him, and I'm for those who've never watched any of what I do, fuck numbers. Analytics and that advanced stuff that can be shoved right up your keister. Okay, Jorge loves it, and the stuff that Jorge adds, the stuff that Jorge adds only makes me look better because it just further solidifies what I'm saying.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So like, when Jorge brought that up, I'm like, oh my God, I'm even more right than I expected to be.
I was shocked by that personally.
Yeah. I was like, is he onto something? Holy crap. Oh, I'll be damned. Yeah.
And that's what I trust my eyes a lot of the time. And I trust. There's a reason NFL head coaches have gotten to this point. And I mean, the great example is baseball. There's a reason baseball managers have gotten to this point because they were good at their game and they're good at recognizing talent. When the analytics start to come into play, you turn to the Tampa Bay Rays and take out your starting pitcher when he has one hit in the World Series in Game 6. He's never pitching again for another 4 months.
Right.
That's what happens, and you lose. So trusting your eyes to me is the best way. And when I've seen Tate Crowder play, Tate Crowder has not been flashy. He's not the fastest guy. He's not the quickest guy, but he's in the right spot. He tackles extremely efficiently, and he understands his role within the defense. He is not going to step outside of his role and play hero ball like Trayvon Diggs when he gets burned on every single play. That's not going to happen. Tate Crowder is going to play within his role. He's going to play it so well that he's like Josh Jacobs, a painful RB2 he just does it. You don't want to watch him. It's gross. You hate it. It's awful. You hate having him on your team, but he gets it. He gets the job done, even though you hate it. It's double-digit points every week. And that's the thing with Tate Crowder. I can equate that to probably that offensive side of the ball is like that Josh Jacobs, where it's like, it's ugly to have him on your team and you're like, why do I hate this guy? Because he puts up numbers. That's Tate Crowder.
You know what's going to be helpful? Oh, sorry, Jorge. Go ahead.
I was going to say, loved your last part. The first part, completely wrong. Because you know what? I'm going to be I'm going to appease people here. It takes both numbers and eyes to scout good players.
Okay.
And that's fair.
Which is true. And that's what I was going to say, Jorge, real quick, not to cut you off. But I'll be that third person that's taken both, because if you don't see, example, missed tackle rate. Guess what? If a linebacker doesn't read the play well and he's not in position, you can't miss the tackle if you're not involved in the play. If you just get burnt because you get blocked and you don't even have a chance to get to the ball carrier, you can't actually get a missed tackle. You can have a shitty, overall rating by PFF, but you on the numbers, you might see 6.8 missed tackle rate and go, that's fantastic. But out of the play rate, which I don't know if there's an equation for that. There's got to be something that says that you're not in the right place at the right time, which is always so hard to identify. But it's a combination. I think that we have a good little triumvirate of information that we'll be able to put together, hopefully, a piece. Finish to your statement. I'm sorry to cut you off.
Well, I was going to say, when it comes to like the universal laws of nature, math doesn't lie. I'm just saying. That's all I'm saying. The numbers don't lie. Numbers don't lie.
Hey, in 1984, math did lie. It said 2 + 2 was 5. So I beg to differ, sir.
I do not know that reference, and the fact that you know a 1984 reference and I don't, that's saying something about you. That's impressive.
They didn't make you read the book 1984?
Oh, sorry, the book. Yeah.
George Orwell, yeah.
What do you think he meant? The year?
Yes.
He wasn't born yet in 84.
I'm thinking back to our age conversation earlier, and he said 1984. I'm like, what the hell happened in 1984? Yeah, okay, sorry. My bad. Sorry.
Joe,
Joe,
what happened
born
in 1984 is that
89?
the Macintosh changed the world. So, if I remember, that's the best Super Bowl commercial to ever live. Look up Apple 1984 commercial, best Super Bowl commercial ever live. Go do it. It'll change your life. I promise you. Best Super Bowl commercial. Just do it after the show's over. Don't do it now. Do it after the show's over.
You didn't tell me what to do. I'm going to do it right now.
You know what? Open YouTube in another tab. Mute us for a minute. Watch the video and be like, "Oh my God, he was right," and then come back and we'll start.
But tell him he was right.
I don't. Yeah. That's why I'm not going to watch.
We need that validation.
I don't want to validate.
It is like, in all seriousness, is the best commercial ever created. In my opinion, is the best commercial.
Okay, I
highly recommend. Best commercial. It was so good.
Considering coming from a person who just built up and hyped up Tate Crowder, I'm going to go ahead and probably not trust that commercial to be the best. No offense.
That's rude. That's rude. All right.
I find you offensive, sir.
What's the next segment, Roxanne? I don't want to hear any of this negativity.
Beyond the field. A look into exploitable matchups by position based on player strengths and opponents' weaknesses from an analytical perspective. And that would be Jorge.
Numbers again. This is amazing. It's crazy.
Numbers.
Well, I'm going to try and minimize the numbers and throw in some narrative and see your opinion there, Joe and Roxanne and Nate. So this week, I'm really excited to see really a lot of the teams, in the AFC West, but specifically the Las Vegas Raiders. Defensive ends Matt Crosby, Chandler Jones together. I mean, you have two elite pass rushers who have been doing it for so long. Chandler Jones, let's not forget, he was a part of the Belichick Super Bowl era of Super Bowl victories, and he's still going strong. Everybody, he had 1 year where he tore his bicep or tricep. He was out for the year. Every other year since then, it's been like 9 sacks plus, more so in the double digits than, you could say that. And now I think you get a player like Max Crosby, who this week I think is going to benefit tremendously from taking on from having Chandler Jones as his running mate, because it's one of those things where like it's one thing if you have one defensive end and the other one's kind of like scrubby, that the attention is going to go to you. Well, not the case with Chandler Jones. The attention is going to be divided between both these defensive ends, which means you're going to get a lot of one-on-one matchups with both defensive ends. I think Max Crosby has the better matchup this week just because he's going against right tackle Trey Pipkins. Joe, have you heard of Trey Pipkins before?
No, but his last name is sick.
It's Pippy. See what I did there? Anyhow, Max Crosby last year had a win rate of 26.8%, was like near the top of the league. I want to say top 3 or top 5. Had a pressure rate of 16.9%. Again, top 3, top 5, fantastic. And he's going against a guy in Trey Pipkins who in 6 games allowed 30 pressures to opposing defensive linemen. Just to give you some perspective, Jonah Williams, the first-round pick for the Cincinnati Bengals a few years ago, the left tackle, the guy who played all 16 games last year, in 16 games gave up 30 pressures. Pipkins allowed 30 in 6 games. Yikes. I mean, if this doesn't scream to you, Max Crosby is going to go off on his one-on-one matchup with Pipkins and get you some quarterback hits. If you play in a league that uses scoring settings that reward points for quarterback hits and pressures and other pressure metrics, he is going to just destroy your opponent this week if you have him in one of those leagues. Max Crosby, fire him up.
I'm all for Max Crosby. I think he's fantastic. And as long as he's not seeing Rashawn Slater, then everything's fine. So,
exactly. That's exactly right. Chandler Jones will be.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah. And they'll probably, I mean, that'd be bold of them to double Max Crosby. It just feels bold to double Max Crosby and still leave Chandler Jones one-on-one with Slater. It just feels bold, even though that's like a normal thing that some teams might do. Obviously, double an end and just leave the other one-on-one. But, I mean, maybe they chip him. Eckler chips him out of the backfield.
Maybe.
Who's the tight end?
Tiny Austin Eckler will chip big, strong Max. I mean, it's possible. It's possible.
I'm not telling you he's going to knock his ass on the ground. I'm just saying maybe he knocks him off course for a half a second.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, Gerald Everett maybe chips him off the line too, right? Ball snapped, he lines up, and I don't think Gerald Everett's going to line up in line very often. But if he lines up in line real quick, see ya. It doesn't matter. Max Crosby's a beast, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, his matchup is
his
great.
nickname is Mad Max for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Right.
Yep, he's fantastic. All right, Nate.
It'd be also interesting just that game as a whole to see how
Very
they utilize Jonathan Abram as well. If he's brought in on plenty of safety blitzes, I think that's going to make them even try to shift the offensive line one way or the other. I think we're in for a passing game. I mean, the entire West is, and I don't think people talk
Loaded.
I mean,
Loaded.
who doesn't? It's the easy go-to conversation because no one disagrees with that. It's like the West is just going to be exciting to watch, and for us Chiefs fans, it's not exactly the most.
Gross.
Gross being a Chiefs fan or gross?
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That's all right.
Well, here's
Not when I'm a Bronco fan. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. That's good. That's I'm trying to think of something nice to say.
There's not much.
yeah.
I liked
I like
Peyton Manning.
Roxanne. She's funny.
Terrell Davis was good. I could go on and on, but I wish I had someone good for the Broncos to talk about as far as an exploitable matchup. But I'm going to piggyback a little bit off of what Jorge said earlier. And at the defensive back position, he talked about Brandon Jones. And the one area that Brandon Jones excels at is pass rush, as well as being utilized in that pass rush. And so you take one area on the Patriots, and that's the offensive line. And 2 years ago, when Dante Scarnecchia retired, there's been a pretty heavy trickle-down effect on that offensive line. It's easy also to go from Tom Brady to Mac Jones and say you're never going to get the efficiency from that offensive line from the 2 quarterback changes. But Matt Patricia is in charge of that O-line now as well. We talked about this a little bit last night. I don't know about you three. If you have an opinion on Matt Patricia that is glowing towards his offensive line coaching prowess, then I stand down because I don't know. All I can say is I assume that considering they're going to probably, have to drop back and protect against a few others, Jalen Phillips on the edge, Brandon Jones in these well-scripted blitz packages, I think he's going to live in the backfield pretty well. And let's say they go with a run game. I mean, does anybody really think that Damian Harris is shifty enough to elude Brandon Jones being up at the line of scrimmage? That's one matchup to exploit. The other one is I love the matchup of Von Bell against the Steelers. I mean, the Steelers offensive line, we know if there's one, chink in their armor, it's that offensive line is just kind of garbage. And it's been that way for a few years now. And
Kinda.
I mean, I'm trying to be nice because there might be
Kinda?
Steelers fans out there.
Najee Harris scraped out 3.9 yards per carry last year. He couldn't even hit 4. That's how bad his offensive line was.
You know, the last time a person with 1,000 yards had sub 4 yards per carry?
I heard this today, but I forgot because
You heard this last night from me.
Oh, there we go. See, I'm old. I forgot last night.
I mean, there has to be someone in between, but Barry Sanders.
I mean, there is someone in between, but it was 2011. It's been 11 years since someone has been that inefficient. So yeah, I worry a lot. I have Najee Harris pretty far down, but that also tells me, you know, Von Bell being at the line of scrimmage, I believe that he's in a situation this week because, you know, again, I can't see a situation where Pittsburgh is as pass heavy as they've been. I mean, you're talking about one of the most pass heavy teams from the past couple of years now. They're going to have to try to run the ball, but can they? And so, again, Swiss cheese offensive line, safety, efficient at the line of scrimmage. It just seems like an easy 7+ tackle day for Von Bell, plus any splash plays.
I like it.
It's fair. All right. I'm gonna stay in the New England game too because I'm a Patriots fan, so I very well know their weaknesses and how much they suck right now, and their offensive line is one of them. Jerome Baker is one of the Mike linebackers for Miami, and he's familiar with the opponent. I believe he's been with Miami the last 2 seasons, so he's played New England 4 times. He knows their rough offense. Their offense from last year has not changed. It's the exact same. We're going to go run heavy, and then when we're down and we need to, we're comfortable in quotation marks throwing the football with Mac Jones. Haven't really felt that yet, but again, year 2, we have no idea. We won't know. We don't know much about many teams until like week 3, till we can really say, okay, now we can get a little feel. But they're still going to dump off to running backs. That's a bread and butter of the New England Patriots offense. Who's going to be covering those running backs? It's probably Jerome Baker. He's versatile enough and athletic enough to be able to do the job. Damian Harris, I don't think is the receiving back because he can't catch, in my opinion. Ramondre Stevenson, I wish that man is the RB1 for the team, in all honesty. He is like 230 pounds. He's like a bowling ball with legs. And it's incredible to watch his agility because for how big he is, it is weird how agile he is as well. So, but even then,
3 more.
Oh God,
It's
love
crazy.
it. Yeah. And then
I have him on many rosters this year, so I am.
If you drafted Ramondre Stevenson 2 rounds after Damian Harris, you were correct. Just for the record, you were correct. You did the right thing. And I mean, to top it all off, New England blows in Miami. If there is one spot the Patriots cannot play, it is in New England. And just for the history, just so you guys know, there's 2 teams Brady can't perform against. It's the Giants and the Saints. Look at his history against the Saints. It's unbelievable how bad he is against that team. Unbelievable. Including with the Bucs.
Right.
And he also can't play in Miami. And apparently it's not just Brady. It's the entire Patriots organization. Remember the Miami Miracle? Remember that? Where they put Rob Gronkowski at free safety? That is the epitome. That one play is the epitome of how bad New England is in Miami. I say every year that when they had Brady, I'm like, every year they're going to go 15-1 and they're going to lose that one in Miami. Every year I knew they were going to lose in Miami. Without a doubt. It was no question in my mind they were going to lose in Miami. So Jerome Baker, I think they're going to have a good game. I think it is going to be close because I think this whole Tua and Tyreek Hill thing needs to chill. So yeah. Everyone needs to calm the hell down. Just scroll back through Dolphins Twitter and show me how many times they hit him in stride, at least 20 yards down the field. You'll be scrolling for a while, just so you know.
Carpet tunnel.
Yeah, you'll be scrolling back to 2019 when neither of them played for the team.
Joe, can I add? I'm going to say your Jerome Baker take should be a prop bet smash play for anybody that knows anything about Jerome Baker versus the Patriots. Like you said, even further, game 1, both 2019 and 2020, who were the Miami Dolphins opponents? The New England Patriots. What did Jerome Baker do in both of those games? Let's go back to 2019. So I'm sorry, 2020, not 2019, 2020 and 2021.
Yeah, I was like,
time is eluding me. Yes, I'm getting old. Back to the wishing well. No, so 2020, week 1 against New England Patriots, 12 solo, 4 assists, a tackle for a loss, a sack, quarterback hit, and a forced fumble.
Wow.
Damn.
Is that good?
It's decent. 2021, I should have started 2021 then back to 2020, kind of anticlimactic. He only had 8 solo and 4 assists. So yes,
that's 20 points in my league. That's 20 points.
And the first game would have been probably 35 in that league. Because you had twice as many 60% more souls in the forced fumble.
Again, there's times where now I say I like numbers, just not advanced analytics. Like, regardless, those numbers I love. That makes me feel great, right? I know what a tackle is. I know what an assisted tackle is. I don't know what the college dominator rating is. That's dumb.
That's beyond me, my friend.
Yeah, it's dumb. Also, if you pretend to know what QBR is, you're a liar. You are a liar if you pretend to know what QBR is. Like, those numbers, that is so stupid. That's a terrible statistic. But like that stuff, Nate, again, numbers making me look so much smarter than I actually am. This is great. Oh, this is why we have you guys here. This is amazing.
Next time,
numbers are your friend. Numbers are your friend.
They are.
When they're
I like
on your
it both
side.
ways. I like to watch and numbers and correlate them. I think it's the best.
And now we get to end on disappointments.
Yay.
Exactly. So when I was writing the show rundown, does anybody else remember Mad TV from the 90s and the lowered expectation? No, Joe, did you ever watch Mad TV?
I was born in 1998, so.
Are you kidding me?
No, I'm 20.
God,
I just turned
freaking baby.
Yeah, how do you like numbers now, Jorge? Son of a bitch.
Yeah, numbers can suck it right now. Yeah, exactly.
Numbers are really on my side.
Yeah. Well, you know whose numbers may not be on his side this week, and this is going to be blasphemy for a lot of people. And I see, Nate, you're already getting to me. It's Danielle Hunter coming off of back-to-back seasons of season-ending injuries. And I'm not here. Here's the thing: I'm not really going to throw numbers your way for this argument at all. Tempered expectations, I think, is what we should be considering with Danielle Hunter. Look, I get it. He's playing opposite Zadarius Smith. He's now Zadarius Smith, who was with the Green Bay Packers for the past couple seasons, is now in Minnesota. You have this great, on paper, tandem of edge rushers. But, you look this week against the Green Bay Packers, David Bakhtiari has been trending towards playing this week. It looks like if he gets into practice tomorrow, he's going to be the starting left tackle. And the question is, Danielle Hunter, over the course of his career, he has been lining up on the left-hand side. Again, so has Zadarius Smith. I think they put Zadarius Smith on the right-hand side and go after, I can't even remember, Eglinton something is his name, right tackle. Doesn't matter what his name is. Name is who Zadarius Smith is going to have his way with him. Okay. And I think Danielle Hunter is going to be matched up against David Bakhtiari. And another thing, Danielle Hunter, he was a traditional defensive lineman, hand in the dirt or turf, in US Bank Stadium. Now he's playing outside linebacker. Now he's standing up, and I know that's like a small difference, but sometimes playing out of alignment, playing out of a position that you've been used to playing in for so long, that can take some time to get used to. And so, in real game speed against real opponents, and all the negativity that he's had the past couple of years. Look, when he's on, he is on. I mean, there's very few who are better than him. But again, it's these injuries makes me a little concerned, playing out of position slightly. And again, the matchup against Bakhtiari, just temper expectations there.
The 3 years prior to his season-ending injuries, he was the number 1 defensive lineman every single year, 2017 through 2019 in my league. That's how good Danielle Hunter is. Yep. But I completely agree. I took him last year. I actually put a bet on him to be comeback player of the year because the odds were so ridiculous. I'm like, oh, maybe he'll break Strahan's sack record. He'll be comeback player of the year. Nope.
Yeah, I love him. I'm tempted, that I trust Jorge quite a bit, and the breakdown. I have him as my defensive lineman number 5 on the week. That's how much I believe in the player.
Wow.
But it's like, man, it makes me. I know. I know. Sometimes you gotta go big or go home, as they
No,
say.
you're right.
Where you got Jeffrey Simmons in that conversation? He better be higher. Just
Well, not on Fantasy Pros scoring for their ECR.
yeah, fine.
I mean, that's the unfortunate game within the game is you kind of have to cater it to a specific scoring format.
Yep.
And it is. But I do have Jeffrey Simmons decently high, I believe. If I'm not mistaken.
He's playing against Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley.
Exactly. He should see heavy. And let's be honest, that interior line for the Giants has never been wonderful.
I said exactly who he was playing against: Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley.
Right, exactly.
I said exactly who he's playing against.
That's fair.
That's all that exists in New York. Exactly.
All right, who's your actual guy though, Nate?
My actual one, as much as it hurts to hear Jorge talk down on Danielle Hunter, this one probably hurts me even more. And I put it that this one hurts my soul, and it does. And I don't feel like I have a soul anymore because I'm a Jeremy Chin super fan. I've been, leading the Jeremy Chin train and the circus and everything else since he came into the league. But if there was anything that we saw in this preseason that was a negative, was his usage and where he was lined up, which was not at the line of scrimmage. He was lined up deep. Now, what does that mean? Could mean absolutely nothing, but it could mean something. And I know that that's such a vague analysis, and that's why week one is so hard to gauge, and it's so difficult for me to place a rank on Jeremy Chin. And you drafted him as your DB1. You're not going to not start him most likely. But if you have an option, just monitor going forward, because if he's deep in that matchup, I mean, he gains the majority of his workload by establishing pressure in the backfield, being at the line of scrimmage for tackles. Sure, does he miss tackles? Yeah, but again, he's coming from the safety position. It's fine. And Cleveland with Jacoby Brissett should be a run-heavy approach. I think that's pretty much almost assumed. I would love to see Jeremy Chin in that situation at the line of scrimmage, but I just have to temper expectations.
See, Nate, if you're like me, you took Derwin James and then took Jeremy Chin as his backup.
Well, that would be wonderful if I had that opportunity. I don't believe that opportunity was presented to me enough times, but I do have Derwin James in enough leagues that I love it. It's like getting, you're getting the number one by leaps and bounds, especially if you play 16, 17, whatever.
Yeah, I got burned by Derwin James the year he got injured, so I was like, it was hard for me to draft him.
Yeah.
So, but I'm like, all right, one more try. If you get injured, you're out. Sorry, see ya. That's why I took Chin so quickly. I was like, I need someone reliable to back him up.
Somebody who you may want to pay attention to in your waiver wire for your IDP leagues is Xavier Woods. As much as Chin has been playing out in coverage more this preseason, Woods has been the one playing closer to the line of scrimmage. He's had a tremendous career, whether he was in Dallas or Minnesota the past few seasons. And now he's in Carolina, somebody who probably is available in shallow leagues that could potentially give you the upside that you were looking for in Jeremy Chin if you drafted him.
Good point.
I'm gonna wrap us up here on I think the boldest one, because I don't know how I feel about this, but I felt like with how we were going, we had to get pretty bold on this. And my first bullet point says, "Don't yell at me."
It does.
And
It's hilarious.
I chose Roquan Smith, and I'm gonna explain to you why, because I firmly believe he is right now probably the best linebacker in the NFL. And if not, he's probably in your top 3 if you are anywhere familiar with current NFL linebackers. He's probably in your top 3.
Mm-hmm.
So, why is he here? Well, that's a great question, everybody. That's a great question, listeners at home. I am simply worried about his contract situation. That's it. He does not want to be in Chicago. What's the point of going all out for a team and potentially getting hurt if you know you're going to get the freaking bag in the offseason no matter what happens? What's the point? Dude had an injury tag on him going into this week. If he's not feeling up to it or he's not feeling well one week, what says he doesn't milk an injury?
Yep.
The team doesn't want him because at this point, he should be signed to a 5-year extension for whatever the highest paid linebacker's getting, he should be making more than that.
Yep.
Like he should reset the market for linebackers. The fact he doesn't have that is alarming. I did not draft Roquan Smith for that reason. I was like, I am worried about him throughout the season. I am 100% worried. I have Eric Kendricks finishing as my linebacker 1 in fantasy football this year because I think Kendricks, again, I think Kendricks is fantastic.
Yeah, he's wonderful.
But because I had Roquan Smith at 2 or 3, I forget my early preseason rankings, but he was at 2 or 3 because of the contract situation. The fact that the team doesn't want to commit to him. He said he's okay being a Bear. He's fine being a Bear, but the team clearly doesn't want to commit to him. They're more committing to Khalil freaking Herbert than David Montgomery for some dumb reason. Like, why are you doing that? This new Chicago regime is clearly off to a terrible start, and they have not made the right decisions so far. So if this continues, Roquan Smith could legitimately miss half the season just because. And I wouldn't blame him one bit. I wouldn't blame him one bit. So that's why I'm worried about Roquan Smith. When he's on the field, he's going to be good. But I'm worried for that reason of if he doesn't want to play, if his injury or if something flares up, just leave the field. There's no reason for you to be on the field. There's no reason. You're going to get so much money in the offseason. Why would you compromise that?
Yeah.
It is a straight gut feeling. Numbers cannot back this up because this is a straight gut feeling.
In my mind, it's like error, cannot compute analytical. There's no analyst, but
you make a great point. Very much so.
He's the best defensive player on his team. He's the best defensive. He's probably the best tackler in the league. He gets sideline to sideline better than most.
Mm-hmm.
He's super, super, super quick. He came out of Georgia.
Yeah,
correct.
Georgia.
When he came in, he was a middle linebacker drafted 8th overall. If that doesn't explain to you how good this guy is, and each year he's gotten better and better and better and better, and he's had an injury history as well. He has missed a couple games here and there. He has missed half a season one time. So if something isn't feeling right to him, there's no reason for him to go back out there. Zero reason. His team sucks. They're going to be last in their division. I said that. Yes, I know Detroit's in their division. They will be last in their division. There's no reason for him to be out there. There's no reason.
They'll have the second worst record in football, probably. Maybe third, but they'll be the bottom 2 or 3. And this is the first year. Think of it from Roquan Smith's standpoint, too. Has there ever been a time in his life, from organized sports, where he hasn't been the most coveted player in the area, on the field, in general? And this is the first time that he's had to get the feeling of you're not wanted or you're not worth it. And that's got to affect the psyche. Now, absolutely, it can go one of 2 completely different directions. We can go this way, which is hyper productive. I'm going to show you and prove you wrong. And I'm going to get paid. And I'm going to say, look what you missed out. And I'm not going to come back out of spite. Or it goes the direction that you went, which is, those are the 2 range outcomes. And that is a huge variance because I think there could be a middle ground. I'm more convinced it's the far extremes on both sides, more so than I think he plays 13 games, milks an injury here or there. I think it's much more elaborate than that. And it's a little terrifying. It is.
Yeah, I'm either very right or extremely wrong.
Right.
And there's no middle ground here. And I'm saying this going into a week, knowing that Trey Lance and the 49ers are going to run the football or do things within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage on 80% of their plays.
Yeah, I know.
And let me take it from another perspective. Aside from feigning an injury or just not choosing to go out there, let's not forget the addition of Nicholas Morrow that they brought in for the Chicago Bears. Very capable, very capable linebacker, inside linebacker, really great at tackling, high tackle rate when he was with the Las Vegas Raiders. Had some injury issues the past couple seasons. He's there now, and he's going to be getting the snaps. He's going to get the opportunities, and you can see some kind of power vacuum be created with, Morrow taking away some tackle opportunities from Roquan Smith. On top of everything you just said, So there could be I could definitely understand and see your take there that there could be some disappointment with him this season.
I hope not. Well, actually, I do, so that way the Patriots can get him. So
My draft rankings hope not also. So
correct. Well, we would all miss out. So you would.
Yeah.
Right.
100%.
All right. Great
We
episode,
did it.
guys.
I know.
We did it.
I love it. This has been our debut episode of You Down with IDP from Club Fantasy and Fantasy and Frames. Make sure you're following Fantasy and Frames on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Fantasy and Frames. And be sure to check out their website, fantasyandframes.com, for all your IDP needs. And don't forget they do Dynasty, Redraft, and DFS too.
Thank you very much for having us. We're so happy. As soon as Josh reached out at the Fantasy Football Expo talking about doing a collab here with Club Fantasy and talking IDP, it was a no-brainer. So, and the fact that this is the team that has been assembled, I couldn't be more happy to be a part of you all and talking some shop this season, talking some defense. And I'm looking forward to week one. We are literally, as we're recording, 30 minutes away from kickoff. So I am amped up for this season. I am amped up for defense.
Me too.
You name it. Let's get it this season, guys.
Let's go.
So excited.
All right. You can follow Club Fantasy on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at Club Fantasy FFL. The URL is clubfantasyffl.com. DFS, player prop, sport betting, and our start sit column. Confidence plays begin hitting the site as early as Friday.
Oh,
That's tomorrow.
it is.
Shit.
So exciting. Oh,
Offense may win fantasy, but defense wins fantasy championships. Just remember that.
shout out Josh to reversing my tagline for No Punt Intended, where I say defense wins championships, offense wins fantasy. Shout out to that. Shout out to that little reverse right there. So
I see what he did there.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
This
you,
was
guys.
so much fun. To everybody, same time, same place next week. We're gonna be back.
And we'll have better analysis because we'll have some numbers to work with.
Oh yes.
Yeah,
so
numbers. That's right. That's what I'm talking about.
So many. Hooray.
1 week sample size
Yay.
information. Someone's going to have a 100% tackle or a 40% tackle rate, and someone's going to have a 30% pressure rate, and that'd be an all-time high.
That's where the filters in Excel come in handy.
Yes,
Whatever.
literally. Thank you, everyone. We will see you same time, same place next week. Enjoy NFL kickoff. It's going to be a good one.